Vayichan sham Yisrael enged ha'har ahar kulanu ke'echad.
Shavua Tov, everyone, and Chodesh Tov. And I'm so happy to be part of this worldwide Torah learning event. Thank you so much for including me. And may we all be zocha to great brachas and yeshuas and nechamot, yeshuot v'nechamot, or yeshuas and nechamas for all of us, which we really need at this time. So let's get straight to it. The title of the class is The Elephant in the Room, Why We're Commemorating a Fail. So one of the big questions about Shavuos and our celebration of Shavuos and our celebrating the receiving of the Torah is that it didn't take very long for us to literally violate the first two dibros, which essentially are the essential dibros. Everything else is sort of subcategories to the first two. The idea of I am your Hashem and have no other gods. And then what's happening? There's like this Egel, which is this Egyptian god figure. People are dancing to it, praying to it, calling it God. And it happens so fast. And like, what's wrong with these people, we ask. And then Hashem says, I'm going to destroy them all. And Moshe prays. And then we get the second Luchos and Yom Kippur. So really, Shavuos didn't work. Why don't we celebrate Yom Kippur? Now, when we ask this question, it triggers another thought. Wait a minute, we've seen this pattern before. Didn't Hashem create the world and Adam and Chava were perfect? And the Midrashim say they saw from one end of the world to the other and they were so spiritual. And then they got one mitzvah and boom, they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And then they were banished. And now the whole of Jewish history and world history is called a tikkun on that, fixing that, making our way, so to speak, back to Eden. So this sounds really familiar. So clearly mankind has a built-in problem. We can't we can't even stay committed to like the greatest clarity and revelation of Hashem. That can't move us. It doesn't seem to really change us. We're hopeless. We're hopeless. So what we're going to learn today is that no, we're not hopeless at all, obviously. And what happened at Har Sinai was retained forever, is deep in us. And the fact that there was the sin of the tree of knowledge and its parallel sin, the sin of the golden calf, means only that we have to understand how humanity operates, how our psyche operates, what's going on, and what we're dealing with, and what's the struggle, and how to improve and achieve and break through where we're supposed to get to, which we are through history. Absolutely, we've been breaking through further and further and further. But what happened? What's that dynamic? Okay. So in both cases, there was this great clarity of God, and then in both cases, this like total kind of like turning our back on it and calling something else God. Okay. So in order to understand, and in the first story, what we called God was like us. We called ourselves God. In the second story, they called the Egel God. The first story is about the creation of mankind. So everything in Bereshis, okay, all the chapters in Bereshis deal with humanity as a whole. What is a human being? How does a human being operate? And what is the pitfalls of a human being will fall into? It's not the story exclusively, okay, of two people a long time ago who had one rule and they broke it and now we're all suffering. No, it's not so simplistic. It's a story about all of mankind, how we work, the nature of sin, what our temptations are, what we give into, and why and how we fix it. It's much bigger than two early people who ruined us all, okay? Who set us all up for so much difficulty and challenges and sorrows. Now, when we talk about the Egel, we're talking about the Jewish people, but you see a parallel. What happened to humanity at large happens again within the Jewish people. So let's go back to the beginning. And my objective today is this, to try to get a visual on the dynamic of the creation and sin story, and then understand the giving of the Torah story. So what I want to focus on is this. There are something very important to notice about the description of man in Genesis and Bereshis in chapter 1 and chapter 2 before you get to chapter 3. Chapter 1 describes man as a Tselem Elokim. And all the language in chapter 1, if you put it all together, describes man as some sort of godly creature with nothing physical about them, with no limitations and no restrictions. dominating and creative and free to express themselves without any boundaries. That's chapter 1. In fact, there's an entire course I'm in the middle of entitled You Take Two, which I teach on Zoom every day at 2 o'clock. And it's all on Torah Anytime. We're up to we're starting unit 6 this week. And it's describing, it really breaks down chapters 1 and chapter 2 and then gets to the sin in chapter 3 in depth. And it's not like the Lonely Man of Faith, if you're thinking, it's not that at all. But if you look at chapter 1, there is language that describes man as a godly creature, okay? For example, it says Vayivra. Bria means something from nothing, okay? Like there's nothing like it on earth, which can't be our bodies, obviously. It's the way we operate, our higher level, our thinking processes. And then man is told, eat everything. And man is male and female, and man is called very good. And man is told, there's no mention of the tree that they can eat from. There's no mention to work the land and preserve and keep its rules. There's no mention of anything being wrong. It's just a story of a creature that is godly with creative instincts and without boundaries and limitations. Then you get to chapter 2, and it's completely different. You're dirt of the earth, and you have limitations, and you have to keep the rules of the land. And it's not good, and it's not good that you're male and female together. It have to be divided, and you can't eat from the tree. And you start hearing about Gan Eden. It's all in chapter 2. And there's also one more thing in chapter 2. There's introduction of some sort of capacity called the neshamah, which doesn't appear, soul, which doesn't appear in chapter 1. So chapter 1 describes man as tselem Elokim, like something just like God. And chapter 2 describes man as a physical material creature, dirt of the earth, organic material, with something called a neshamah. And in chapter 2, that person is limited and restricted and given rules. And in chapter 1, it's the opposite. It's a free reign on the world. Okay, so I want to define Tselem Elokim and Neshamah, because my experience is that so many people have not learned the proper, accurate definitions of these two words. So Tselem Elokim is not some amorphous term. It's like, yeah, we're godly. It has a very specific definition. The Nefesh HaChaim of Chaim Volozhin explains that there's many names to God, but we are called Tselem, the image of Elokim. Now, Elokim is the first name of God that you're introduced to when you open up the Torah. Chapter 1, who do you meet? Elokim. In fact, the name Elokim is the only name of Hashem that is used in chapter 1, exclusively, Elokim. And what is Elokim doing throughout chapter 1 in Bereshis? Creating. So if we are Tselem Elokim, we are creators. We are creators. And that means we create our worlds. We also create pretty much on a very deep mystical level, and the Ramchal talks about this. We create pretty much what happens in our world. We run the whole system. We run the entire system by our deeds and our choices. But we are creators. And when we say someone's a creator, you know what we mean? We mean they are here to express themselves, because creation is self-expression. So Hashem created all these beautiful Alps. This is God's self-expression. One version of a billion versions of Hashem's self-expression is a human being, nature of all sorts, chemistry, viruses, all this. Everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created is coming out of Hashem's, so to speak, self-expression. So that's the core of a human being. In chapter 1, you're here to know that you are godly and that, yes, you are meant to add something to this world. You are meant to have some personal, individual self-expression that you leave in this world. You are here to channel, okay, great truths through your individuality. You are here to help God's story unfold for history, for humanity, through your choices. And for women, talking about Shavuos, there's just women, it's the choices that women make. It's the Lot's daughters, and it's Tamar, and it's Miriam's in the picture. She's David Melech's great-grandmother, and her story, and it's Rus, and it's Naomi, and it's women that facilitate the development of Mashiach. But leaving that aside, it's the way that we choose to have that big story for mankind unfold through us. That's chapter 1. okay? You're a creator. Chapter 2 says you're also, okay, a part of the material world with physical realities, and you have to operate in this world. And you know what? In this world, there's no room for total free expression, because everyone else is also creator, and your free expression might get in the way of their free expression, and your creative, your urge, and your story that you're playing might interfere with their story. So there's boundaries and there's limitations. And what can happen when a person views themselves as very much defined by and limited by the material world, they can begin to question if maybe all they really are, being that they're material and physical, and they're made of organic matter and have the same sort of biological systems as all the other animals and subject to the same limitations of physical things. Maybe they're just a finite physical death-bound creature, and they just better make the best of it while they're here. You see, being a creator is where your mind soars. But in chapter 2, where you're dirt of the earth with limitations, and you have to la'avdo l'shamra, you're just part of this world with a big mind, but without the capacity to really always express it, because there's too many factors to take into consideration. So what do you got? You got a person, this is what you get. You get, from between Perek Aleph and Perek Beis, the essential dynamic of human life, and really the core of choice. What choice comes down to, free choice. We always talk about free choice as Torah Jews. Free choice is not meant to be battling 1,000 battles a day. Should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I keep this mitzvah, shouldn't I? That's not free choice. Free choice comes down, my grandfather taught me this, Rav Shimon Schwab, comes down to making one big choice and then not making a mockery of it. And always every day confirming that one choice. And that is, how do I see myself? What sort of being am I? So in chapter 1, where human being is defined as literally a extension, so to speak, of God himself, flowing with God's creative energies, not described in physical terms at all. Okay? And the allegory I like to use in this, and the clarity that the human being had in the chapter 1 description, which is the same now as the clarity achieved at Har Sinai, at the moment of Matan Torah, is the idea that I am not some finite being in a material world, terrified of all the possibilities that are out there, things that can be so difficult, damaging, painful, or make me hopeless and helpless and insecure. And I just got to survive, and I got to at my best wits, and I got to keep God happy. That's a good way to survive. If I keep God happy, that's a very good method. And that's why I do my mitzvahs. The chapter 1 description, the Matan Torah understanding, I use the allegory. I like to always use this. It's not a perfect allegory, but it I think helps, clarify things. It's like recognizing that we're like a fetus in our mother's womb. In other words, the fetus is in a very unique predicament. They're kind of in their own little world, so they have the sense that they're separate, they're a separate thing. They could even imagine that they're autonomous and that they get to negotiate their world, right, if the fetus could think. And we're sort of in that predicament. But imagine if that wall between the fetus and the mother, that uterine wall, or that mechitza, that boundary, what if for a moment that boundary became totally transparent? The fetus would say, "Oh, I'm part of something much bigger than myself, and actually, my mother that I'm part of, which explains everything about my existence that didn't make any sense. Like, where's this nutrients coming from, and where's who's keeping me, what's keeping the temperature regulated and warm, and what are those noises I hear? Like, now I get it. I'm part of someone, and you know what? The one I'm part of, they're making the decisions actually, and they're making the long-term, choices about how, what's going to happen, and I'm part of it." Well, chapter 1 and in Matan Torah, what happened was the mechitza was removed from our mind, from our consciousness. By Yered Hashem al Hahar, my grandfather Schwab says, Hashem, not physically, Hashem doesn't move physically. Remember, the mother, fetus in the womb, the mother doesn't go down into the womb. What it means is that the boundary, the wall, the limits of our consciousness, our inability to see what we're part of, that became transparent. Imagine the wall between the fetus and the mother becomes transparent. And we were able to understand, oh my goodness, we're completely participating like a fetus. We're participating in Hashem's existence. We're part of Hashem's story. And we are, Hashem's goal for mankind will unfold, and it will unfold through us. That's what Hashem wants, that it should unfold through us. And we're part of it. And we're not all alone, and Hashem could clearly provide for everybody, so we don't have to hate each other and compete with each other all the time, and we're not looking at each other as threats. We're all threats to each other because we're all competing for limited resources. No. We're part of something that is amply able to provide for us and take care of us and guide us. And that's what became crystal clear at the moment of Har Sinai. And it was as it was in the beginning chapters. But then what? Is another reality. Vayal Hashem, Hashem goes back up, which means that wall closes. We go back into the real life. In other words, we open our eyes, our physical eyes, and we draw conclusions by looking around. We say, oh my, this is a very material world I'm in, and I'm part of it, and I can't extricate myself. I have the same cycles and biological realities as the rest of the creatures here. We all live, we all die, we all need food, we all need oxygen, we all bleed. You know, we're all subject to the dangers of life, of viruses and tsunamis, etc. Let me just survive. And a person can get lost in what we call survivor mode versus creator mode, and really identify themselves not so much as a participant in God's existence, but begin to identify themselves as a surviving creature who's trying not to avoid as much pain as they can, in order that we not fall into the trap of thinking that we're just here to survive. Hashem gave us a device, a particular sort of spiritual organ called a neshamah. Think of the neshamah like the umbilical cord. It is a direct feed from the mother to the fetus. So the fetus must realize, no, I'm not alone. Something's providing for me. And I could try to discover, I won't get a full picture, but like the source of, whoever's providing for me. So in a human being, what's the neshama? The feed that gives us thoughts and epiphanies, and we're so curious and drives us and makes us ask questions and say, what's my purpose? There's got to be more to life than survival. And why do I feel like I'm missing something? And I'm so curious about things that have no bearing on my survival, like eternity and justice and truth and kindness. Like, why do I care about these things? They're not survival needs. That's the feed. That's the feed coming through from Hashem directly to us. The Rambam speaks about this in Morna Baruchim, talking about the intellect that flows from God to us, which connects us. And it enters our mind, it enters our gut. And we just kind of know that there's something we're part of. We know we want to devote ourselves to something bigger than ourselves, not just in narcissistic self-indulgence. That's the neshama. And it helps us not get stuck and not get lost in this material identity. So it comes down to this. We have one choice to make in life. What sort of thing am I? And we know, hardwired into our psyche, we already know that we are participating in Hashem's existence. But slipping up the egel, or the eating from the tree, and again, I developed this in much more detail in my You Take Two class, because it's 25 minutes here, but this is what's really at the core of what's happening in the egel. It's saying we are material. We have to survive in the material world, and we need something tangible here to secure us, to secure our sense of safety that we can go to, and that this is going to be what's going to help us survive in the material world. And these these different, attempts we make to protect ourselves, this is what kind of like secures us here. And it's always multiple, by the way. Eile Elokecha. These are all these different efforts you make to secure your existence. That's what's going to kind of like secure you. So this is what we're learning, is that just like in the beginning of our national life, just like in the beginning of human history, Hashem is showing us a pattern. And he's showing it to us through history, but also in a much deeper way. Meaning like this, at your core, what you are. You are participating in my existence, Hashem says. You're part of me. And my story is going to unfold through me. But the big danger, and that's why we say the Chet HaEgel with us every generation. The big danger, again, is always going to be that because you can't see that with your physical eyes, that comes through your neshamah feed. The danger is you're going to get nervous. Survivor mode is driven by fear. Fear, say, I'm all alone here. How am I going to make it? I need something to secure my existence. Let me grasp onto something that I can kind of like count on to feel like I can get what I need. I know how to get what I need. So that's going to be the pitfall. That's the danger, not to fall into it. Many people fall into what sometimes we'll call kosher style survivor mode. Let's keep Hashem happy and do all the mitzvahs and give tzedakah so horrible things won't happen to us and we won't go to Gehenna also. That's all fear-based. That's not, I'm a creator and I'm participating in Hashem's story and there's opportunities for that to flow through me, and the way I condition myself to be a participant is through Torah and mitzvahs. No, that's not that. I'm scared. I want to have the best life. I don't want to be helpless, exploited, starving, poor, sick. I don't want to be any of those things. Let me keep God happy. Let me just hold on to that. I know how to manipulate God so that he'll do what I'll do. If I do what he do, and then maybe I can make it. That's two completely different mindsets. And the bechira that a person has in this world comes down to which one are we? Which one are we? Are we creator mode, participating, Hashem's story unfolding through us, conditioning ourselves to be partners by Torah mitzvahs, or are we fear-driven survivors? So what happened at Har Sinai is, yes, of course we slipped into the Egel because we are a young nation, new to these great ideas, as young children are, and young children also first slip into survivor mode. And then as we mature, and as we get experience in life, and as we learn, we start extricating ourselves from that mindset because it's very self-destructive, and we start attaching ourselves to creator, participant in Hashem's existence. That's normal. It's normal to first fall into that trap and then extricate oneself. So what stayed with the Jewish people forever? What we saw, that transparency. We'll end with this story. My grandfather always told the story from his Rosh Hashiva. There was a blind man. And a great doctor came to town and said he has a new experiment. He can restore the sight of the blind man, but only for 10 minutes. So somebody volunteers and the man gets the surgery and he opens his eyes and he sees colors. He never knew what red and yellow meant. He sees his wife's face and his children, and he sees trees and flowers in the sky. Even if that man would become blind, we'll never forget what he saw. And the Jewish people never forgot what we experienced, that moment of transparency, never. And that's why we're still here. And yes, by default, we fall into survivor mode, but we extricate ourselves from it with time because it's very self-destructive. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to live by fear and be narcissistic and also self-indulgent, which is like, why should I deny myself anything? What's the difference? We're all going to die anyway. That's the other side of it. It's fear and kind of a passive disinterest or not caring. It translates into lust and really fear or anger, which goes together with it. Kas and tava, or gava and tava, they talk about it. But in any case, what we hope to leave with is understanding that no, it wasn't a fail. We saw that transparency. It's still in our heads. That's why we're here. That's why there's Vayichan. That's why there's Siva Shasi after the Holocaust with 100,000 people singing their heads off, so happy to learn Torah. That's why, because that moment can never be unseen. And yes, we slip in survivor mode. Yes. So what do? We pull ourselves out of it. That's what we do. And that's not to tell us we're hopeless. It's to tell us that this is really the two choices in life. How does one identify? The big question today is identify yourself. How do you identify? How do we identify? Creators, Perek Aleph people in a Perek Beis reality. In other words, creator participators in a material world, or survivors with a God up there that we're trying to keep happy, right? Creators or survivors, participants, or just like, or fear-driven, worried, kind of like, survivor people. I guess I have to use the same word again. And we're participants, and we are participating in Hashem's story. That's the Rus story, and I give us all a bracha, all of us, that we should play our roles as wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves. This role never changes. The tafkid never changes. That Hashem's story and Hashem's values travel through us, are propelled further through us. That we have conditioned ourselves through Torah mitzvahs to be the kind of person that Hashem can be seen through our actions and our choices and our conversation. And who knows when, who knows where, an opportunity arises in a small way or a big way to drive this truth home further and further, and bring all of us to the great future that we're awaiting. And then we're promised that for another time, second time, we'll see that we'll have this great revelation, and Hu Yashmeinu Shenis will show it to us again. We'll see it again. That transparency will happen again, and the Jewish people will have earned it and deserved it and worked hard for it and sacrificed for it. And may we be zocha to this bekarov. Have a beautiful Rosh Chodesh, everyone, and a beautiful Shavuos.